Before we begin, subscribe and tell us in the comments what city or country you're watching from. Tonight, a powerful CEO will take his black maid's passport and tell her she cannot leave his mansion, and the one person everyone expects to stand beside him will instead pick up her phone and call the police. Give me the passport, Amara. Amara Hayes tightened her fingers around the navy blue booklet. No. CEO Victor Langford stared at her from across the marble foyer. At 42, Victor controlled Langford Global Hotels, 26 luxury properties, 2 private jets, and enough political connections that most employees lowered their voices whenever he entered a room. Amara did not. She was 31, black, composed, and had spent the previous 18 months working as senior housekeeper inside Victor's enormous Connecticut estate. Tonight was supposed to be her final shift. Her suitcase stood beside the front door. A taxi waited outside. And in 12 hours, Amara was supposed to board a flight to Jamaica to see her mother for the first time in almost 3 years. Victor extended his hand. Passport. You already approved my resignation. I changed my mind. That doesn't change mine. His expression hardened. You signed a 2-year employment agreement, which ends next month. Human Resources approved an early release. I own Human Resources. Amara almost laughed. That sentence explains exactly why I'm leaving. Victor stepped closer. For months, his behavior had changed. At first, it was small. He questioned where Amara went on weekends. Then he began adding evening tasks just before her shift ended. When she requested vacation, the approvals mysteriously disappeared. 3 weeks earlier, after Amara finally submitted her resignation, Victor doubled her salary. She still refused to stay. That seemed to offend him more than anything. You don't understand what you're throwing away, he said. I understand perfectly. You have private accommodation, medical coverage, a salary most household employees would fight for. And none of it makes me your property. Victor's jaw tightened. His fiancée, Claire Beaumont, appeared at the top of the staircase. She had been listening. Claire was 35, an attorney who had recently left corporate litigation to run a legal aid foundation. Unlike Victor, she rarely raised her voice. Victor, she said, let her go. He looked up. This doesn't concern you. Claire descended slowly. You are standing between an employee and the front door while demanding her passport. It concerns me. Victor looked back at Amara. Give it to me. Amara put the passport into her handbag. No. He moved faster than she expected. Victor seized the bag. Amara grabbed the strap. Let go. He pulled harder. The leather strap snapped. The handbag fell open. Her wallet, phone, boarding pass, and passport scattered across the marble. Victor picked up the passport first. Amara stared at him. Give that back. No. Claire stopped halfway across the foyer. Victor. He slipped the passport into his jacket. You're not leaving tonight. Amara's expression changed from anger to disbelief. You cannot keep my identification. I can prevent an employee from disappearing while company property is missing. Amara froze. What company property? Victor walked toward his study. A diamond bracelet disappeared from the upstairs safe this afternoon. Claire frowned. Your mother's bracelet? Yes. You told me it was being cleaned. That was before security checked the safe. Amara stared at Victor. You think I stole it? I think you resigned unexpectedly, booked an international flight, and now a bracelet worth $400,000 is missing. My flight has been booked for 2 months. Convenient. Amara looked at Claire. This is why he took my passport. Claire's eyes narrowed. You knew the bracelet was missing before she came downstairs? Victor said nothing. You planned this. I'm protecting my property. You accused her after taking her travel document. Victor turned toward Amara. Open your suitcase. No. Then you stay until security does. My taxi is outside. I cancelled it. Amara's face went still. You what? I told the gate not to let the driver enter. For the first time, genuine fear moved through her. Not because Victor was shouting. Because he wasn't. He spoke as though controlling whether she could leave was completely normal. Amara reached for her phone. Victor picked it up from the floor first. "I'll keep this too." Claire stepped directly between them. "That's enough." Victor stared at her. "Move." "No. You are choosing an employee over your fiancé? I'm choosing not to watch a man confiscate a woman's passport and phone." Victor laughed coldly. "You don't know what she's been doing." Claire looked at Amara. "What has she been doing?" Victor pulled a file from the console table. "Sending internal hotel documents to someone outside the company." Amara went pale. Claire noticed. "So that part is true." Amara looked at Victor. "I sent photographs of payroll sheets." "To whom?" "A labor attorney." Victor smiled. "There." Claire did not. "Why?" Amara hesitated. Then she answered. "Because Langford Global has been deducting money from immigrant housekeeping staff for something called visa security." Claire frowned. "There is no lawful payroll category by that name." "I know." Amara continued. "Workers in 3 hotels told me management keeps their passports in the general manager's safe until their contracts end." Claire slowly turned toward Victor. His silence said too much. Amara pointed at his jacket. "That's why I'm leaving. What you just did to me has already been happening to women across your hotels." Victor's face hardened. "You have no idea how international staffing works. I know employees are not collateral. You stole confidential records. I copied evidence." Victor stepped closer. "You are not leaving this estate until I know exactly what you sent." Claire took out her phone. Victor laughed. "Who are you calling?" "My attorney." "No." She pressed 3 numbers. Victor's expression changed. "Claire." She raised the phone to her ear. "Police." For the first time that night, Victor looked uncertain. "Hang up." "No. You'll destroy my company over a disgruntled maid." Claire looked directly at him. "No, Victor." Her voice became colder. "You may have already done that yourself." Then Amara noticed something on Victor's desk behind him. A small security monitor showed the mansion's underground garage. Inside, 2 men were removing suitcases from a Langford Global van. Every suitcase had an employee name attached. And on the table beside them lay dozens of passports. Amara stared at the screen. Victor followed her gaze. His face changed. Claire saw it too. She spoke into the phone. "Yes. I need officers sent to Langford Estate immediately." Then one of the men in the garage looked directly into the security camera. He lifted Amara's missing boarding pass. And beneath it was a photograph of her mother's house in Jamaica. Claire was still speaking to the police when Amara pointed toward the security monitor. "That's my mother's house." Victor turned. On the garage screen, one of the men held up a photograph showing a small yellow house behind a row of palm trees in Montego Bay. Amara knew every detail. The chipped front gate. Her mother's hibiscus plants. The blue chair on the veranda. How did they get that? Victor did not answer. Claire lowered the phone slightly. "Victor, I don't know." Amara stepped toward him. "You knew I was flying to Jamaica. Your travel request was in the staff system. My mother's address wasn't." Victor's silence returned. Claire finished giving the dispatcher the estate address. "Officers are on the way." Victor reached for the house intercom. "Security, lock down the underground garage." Nothing happened. He pressed again. No answer. The monitor suddenly went black. Then every exterior gate indicator on the estate control panel switched from green to red. Claire frowned. "What does red mean?" Victor's face hardened. "Manual lockdown. Can we still leave?" "Not through the main gates." Amara looked toward the front door. "You already stopped me once. This isn't me. You expect me to believe that?" "No." Victor took his phone from his pocket. "I expect you to watch what I do next." He called the estate security director. Straight to voicemail. Then the operations chief. No response. Finally, someone answered from an unknown extension. A man's voice. "Mr. Langford." Victor went still. Who is this? You should have let Miss Hayes board her flight. Amara recognized the voice. Not from the mansion. From somewhere else. She searched her memory. Then it hit her. The Kingston Bay Hotel. Victor looked at her. What? I heard him 3 weeks ago during a staff call. The voice continued. Very good, Amara. Her stomach tightened. Victor put the call on speaker. What do you want? The payroll photographs. Amara answered. They're already with an attorney. That was careless. You're holding employee passports. We are protecting contractual obligations. Claire's expression sharpened. That sounds remarkably similar to unlawful coercion. The man laughed. And you must be Claire Beaumont. Who are you? Someone who knows legal vocabulary too. Victor stepped closer to the phone. Open my gates. You don't control those gates tonight. Victor's jaw clenched. This is my estate. No, Mr. Langford. Tonight it is a storage facility. For what? Evidence. The call ended. For several seconds nobody moved. Then Claire looked at Victor. You really didn't know? He stared at the dead phone. No. Amara did not trust him yet. But for the first time, she believed he might be telling the truth about one thing. Someone inside Langford Global had gone beyond what even Victor understood. Police sirens sounded faintly beyond the estate walls. Then stopped. Claire looked toward the windows. Why did they stop? Victor checked the gate cameras. A black SUV had been parked sideways across the main entrance. The gate itself remained locked. They can't get in. Claire immediately called the dispatcher again. Amara walked toward her suitcase. Victor stepped into her path. She stared at him. Move. Where are you going? To the garage. Absolutely not. You lost the right to tell me where I can go when you put my passport in your pocket. Victor flinched. Then slowly removed the passport. He held it out. Amara took it. My phone. He gave that back too. Claire watched him. Good start. Victor ignored the comment. If those men have employee passports and information about your mother, walking into the garage is dangerous. So is doing nothing. Amara grabbed a flashlight from the utility drawer. There's another way down. Victor frowned. The service staircase? No. She looked at him. The old laundry lift. He stared. There is no laundry lift. There is. Your staff uses it because the main service elevator breaks twice a month. Claire almost smiled. Apparently your maid knows your house better than you do. Amara corrected her. Former maid. Victor said nothing. The old lift opened behind the pantry and descended to a storage corridor beside the garage. Amara, Claire, and Victor stepped out into darkness. Voices echoed ahead. They moved carefully. Through a half-open door, Amara saw 6 metal luggage racks. Each one held personal belongings taken from hotel workers. Passports. Phones. Immigration documents. Employment contracts. At least 80 people. Claire whispered, "This is organized." Victor's face changed. Not surprise anymore. Recognition. I've seen those contract folders. Amara looked at him. Where? Quarterly staffing reviews. You knew. I knew international employees signed housing and retention agreements. You knew their passports were stored. No. Did you ever ask what document retention compliance meant? Victor went silent. Amara understood. He had approved systems without asking what they actually did to people. That made him responsible in a different way. Claire spotted a filing cabinet. She pulled one drawer open. Inside were employee names arranged by hotel location. Beside each name were notes. Family overseas. Debt level. Immigration renewal date. Likelihood of leaving. Amara found her own file. She opened it. Her photograph was clipped to the front. Underneath. Amara Hayes, high-risk exit. Family leverage available. Claire whispered, family leverage? Amara turned the page. Her mother's address. Medical appointments. Church attendance. Even photographs of her buying groceries. Someone had been watching an elderly woman in Jamaica because Amara wanted to quit her job. Victor looked sick. "I never authorized this." Amara's voice was cold. "But your company paid for it." Before he could answer, footsteps approached. Claire pulled them behind the luggage racks. Two men entered. One was the man Amara had seen on the monitor. The other wore a Langford Global Executive badge. Victor leaned forward slightly, then froze. Amara whispered, "You know him?" Victor barely nodded. "Martin Shaw." "Who is he?" "My chief operating officer." Martin placed a laptop on the table. "The police are outside. We move everything through the West Tunnel." The other man asked, "And Hayes?" Martin smiled. "Victor will handle her." Amara looked at Victor. His expression darkened. Martin continued, "He has been doing exactly what we need without realizing it." Claire's eyes narrowed. The other man laughed. "Taking her passport was useful." "Of course it was." Victor has always confused control with leadership. Victor looked as though someone had struck him. Martin opened a file. "He creates the fear. We create the paperwork." Amara understood. Victor's behavior had made the larger system believable. His temper. His possessiveness. His assumption that employees should obey. People like Martin could build an entire coercive operation beneath those habits because nobody would question whether Victor had authorized it. Then Martin said something worse. "Once Hayes is terminated for theft, every record she copied becomes evidence from a disgruntled employee." The other man asked, "What about Claire?" "She called the police." "So?" Martin closed the laptop. "Then she becomes the reason Victor loses everything." Claire's face hardened. Footsteps moved away. Amara waited until the corridor went silent. Then she stepped out. Victor grabbed her arm instinctively. She ripped it free. "Do not touch me." He released her immediately. "I'm sorry." She looked at him. Not forgiving. Just measuring whether he finally understood. Claire opened Martin's laptop. It required a password. Victor tried 3 executive codes. All failed. Amara looked at the screen. "Try retention." Victor frowned. "Why?" "Because men like him rename abuse until it sounds professional." Claire entered the word. The laptop opened. Folders appeared. Passport retention. Exit prevention. Family pressure. Disputed employees. And one folder dated that morning. Amara Hayes, final action. Claire opened it. Inside was a prepared police complaint accusing Amara of stealing Victor's mother's diamond bracelet. Attached were photographs supposedly showing the bracelet inside Amara's suitcase. Amara stared. "They planted it." Victor looked toward her suitcase upstairs. "They were going to search your luggage after stopping your taxi." And then, Claire opened the next document. Her face changed. "Then they planned to call immigration authorities and report that Amara possessed stolen property while attempting to leave the country." Amara's hands went cold. Victor stared at the screen. They were going to destroy her entire life. "No," Claire said. She opened another file. They were going to use her as an example. A list appeared. 11 other employees were marked. Pending exit deterrence. Amara whispered, "They're planning to do this again." Then a noise came from behind them. Metal scraping. Victor turned. The garage's west wall slowly opened. A hidden vehicle tunnel appeared. Martin Shaw stood inside. He was holding Amara's suitcase. And on top of it glittered Victor's missing diamond bracelet. Martin smiled. Perfect. Behind him were 3 hotel workers with their hands restrained. One of them looked directly at Amara. She recognized him. Daniel Reyes. A former Langford housekeeper who had supposedly quit 6 months earlier and returned to Mexico. Amara whispered, "Daniel?" His eyes filled. "I never left." Martin's smile widened. "No." He looked at Victor. None of them did. Daniel Reyes stood behind Martin Shaw with his wrists bound. Amara stared at him. 6 months earlier, Langford Global had announced that Daniel voluntarily returned to Mexico after completing his contract. His goodbye email had even been circulated among the housekeeping staff. Now he was standing inside a hidden tunnel beneath Victor's estate. "You never left," Amara whispered. Daniel shook his head. "They took my passport first." Victor looked at Martin. "What did you do?" Martin laughed. "What you allowed us to do." Victor stepped forward. "I never authorized kidnapping employees." "No. You only created a company where nobody questioned you." That stopped him. Martin continued. "You demanded loyalty. You punished people for leaving. You called employees ungrateful when they refused overtime." Claire looked at Victor. Every word landed because some of it was true. Martin pointed toward Amara. "Tonight you took her passport yourself. I didn't tell you to." Victor looked away. Amara did not rescue him from the shame. Martin smiled. "You made coercion normal. I simply turned it into a business model." Claire stepped closer to Amara. "What happens to workers who refuse?" Daniel answered before Martin could. "They disappear from payroll." Martin's expression changed. Daniel continued. "They put us in company apartments under different names. Some are forced to work at private properties. Others are threatened with immigration complaints." Amara looked at the other restrained workers. "How many?" Daniel swallowed. "At least 32 that I know." Victor's face went pale. Martin raised one hand. "You should be careful, Daniel." Daniel looked at him. "You already took everything." "No." Martin glanced toward a phone on the table. "Your wife is still in Mexico." Daniel went silent. Amara understood immediately. Family leverage. Exactly what her own file had said. Martin had built the system around one principle: workers would endure almost anything if their families could be threatened. Claire whispered, "We need to get them out." The hidden tunnel led toward the western edge of the estate, beyond the police blockade. But Martin controlled the gate. And 3 security men now appeared behind him. Victor stepped forward. "Let them go." Martin laughed. "You don't have authority anymore. This is my estate." "Not tonight." Martin lifted Victor's phone. Victor instinctively checked his pocket. Empty. Martin had taken it earlier in the garage. He tapped the screen. A company alert appeared on the wall monitor. Langford Global Emergency Board vote. CEO temporarily suspended. Victor stared. Claire frowned. "On what grounds?" Martin smiled. "Unlawful detention of an employee." Amara looked at Victor. The irony was brutal. Martin continued. "Claire called the police. Security footage shows Victor taking Amara's passport and refusing to let her leave." Victor's jaw clenched. "You planned for me to do that." "No." Martin shook his head. "I hoped you would." He looked at Amara. "You quitting made him angry." Victor always behaves predictably when someone tells him no. Amara's expression hardened. Victor looked at her. "I'm sorry." She said nothing. "Not yet." Martin turned back to the monitor. "With Victor suspended, I become acting chief executive." Claire stared. "You're taking the company." "I'm protecting it." "You trafficked workers." "I protected labor investments." Amara almost laughed. "There it is again." Martin looked at her. "What?" "Renaming abuse until it sounds professional." His face hardened. "Take her." 2 security men moved toward Amara. Claire stepped directly in front of her. "No." Martin looked amused. "You're willing to get hurt for a maid?" Claire took out her attorney identification. "I'm willing to stand between a victim and the man committing a felony." One guard hesitated. That was enough. Daniel suddenly slammed his shoulder into the second guard. Chaos exploded. Victor grabbed Martin. Claire pulled Amara toward the restrained workers. "Keys." One of the guards dropped a ring. Amara grabbed it and unlocked Daniel first. Daniel freed the others. Martin struck Victor across the face and ran toward the tunnel. Victor followed. Amara shouted, "Leave him." But Victor disappeared after Martin. Claire looked furious. He still thinks this is about winning. Then Daniel pointed toward Martin's laptop. The worker registry. Amara opened it. A map appeared. 32 red dots. Langford hotels. Private villas. Staff residences. One dot flashed beneath the estate itself. Daniel stared. What is that? Amara clicked it. Holding Unit 04. Claire went still. There are more people here. A location diagram showed a sealed storage level beneath the old wine cellar. 6 workers. 1 medical alert. Amara grabbed the laptop. We get them out. Claire nodded. They ran. The wine cellar access required Victor's biometric authorization. Claire looked at the scanner. We need him. Daniel shook his head. No. Martin kept a backup. He pulled a small silicone fingerprint mold from the guard's pocket. Amara stared. They copied Victor's fingerprint. Daniel nodded. They use it whenever they need approvals to look like his. Claire pressed the mold against the scanner. The door opened. Inside were 6 employees. 1 woman lay weakly against the wall. Amara recognized her. Lena Ortiz. She had supposedly resigned from the Miami Langford 6 months earlier after becoming pregnant. Amara dropped beside her. Lena. Lena opened her eyes. They took my documents. Claire checked her pulse. She needs medical help. Daniel found an emergency exit lever. They opened the service door just as police finally breached the western perimeter. Officers flooded the cellar. Claire handed them Martin's laptop. 32 possible victims. Multiple locations. Start now. Then a gunshot echoed from the tunnel. Amara froze. Victor. She ran toward the sound. Claire followed. At the tunnel exit, Martin stood beside an SUV. Victor was on the ground holding his shoulder. Martin pointed a gun toward him. Your company was easier to steal than you think. Amara stopped behind a concrete pillar. Claire whispered, don't move. Martin raised the gun again. Before he could fire, police lights flooded the tunnel. He turned. Victor kicked the gun from his hand. Officers tackled Martin against the SUV. Amara ran to Victor. Blood covered his shirt. He looked up at her. Are the workers out? Yes. Good. Then his eyes moved toward her passport still clutched in her hand. His face filled with shame. I became exactly the kind of man who made all of this possible. Amara looked at him. You didn't build every crime. No. He winced. But I built the fear they hid behind. Claire arrived beside them. Sirens echoed through the estate. Then Daniel ran from the cellar holding Martin's laptop. Amara. She turned. There's another file. He opened it. A list appeared titled, Jamaica Transfer, tomorrow, 6 o'clock. Amara's mother's name was at the top. Her stomach dropped. What does transfer mean? Daniel looked terrified. Martin wasn't just watching her. He turned the screen. A private medical transport had already been scheduled to collect Amara's mother before sunrise. And the destination was listed as Langford Private Property, location confidential. Amara stared at the time. Less than 7 hours remained. Martin had been arrested. But whoever was running the Jamaica operation was still free. And now they knew exactly where Amara's mother lived. By 11:38 p.m., Victor was in surgery for the gunshot wound, Martin Shaw was in federal custody, and Claire Beaumont was sitting beside Amara inside a police command vehicle. But Amara could think about only one thing. Her mother. The transport listed in Martin's files was scheduled to reach Montego Bay at 5:40 a.m. 7 hours sounded like enough time. It wasn't. Claire opened Martin's encrypted Jamaica folder. Here. A company name appeared. Caribbean Executive Care Services. Amara frowned. My mother doesn't use private medical transport. That's the point. Attached was a forged physician order claiming 68-year-old Yvette Hayes suffered from severe confusion and required emergency transfer to a private neurological facility. Amara's hands shook. They made her legally helpless on paper. Claire looked at her. The same way Martin made employees look like thieves when they tried to leave. Amara called her mother. No answer. Again. Nothing. On the fourth attempt, someone picked up. A man. Mrs. Hayes is resting. Amara stood. Who are you? Medical transport coordinator. You are inside my mother's house? Silence. Claire immediately began recording. Amara's voice hardened. Put my mother on the phone. She has been determined incapable of making medical decisions. By whom? Langford Global Employee Family Services. Claire's expression changed. Victor's company again. Amara whispered, my mother has never worked for Langford. The man replied calmly. No. You did. The call ended. Claire was already contacting Jamaican authorities through an international legal emergency line. At the same time, federal investigators transmitted Martin's files to local police. But Amara saw something else inside the transport order. The authorization signature. Victor Langford. Claire stared at it. Could be another copied signature. Amara shook her head. A timestamp sat beside it. 3 weeks earlier. The same week Amara submitted her resignation. Victor had personally approved an employee family risk protocol. He may not have known Martin intended kidnapping, but he had approved surveillance of employees' relatives to prevent what the policy called premature contract abandonment. Claire closed the file slowly. He knew about the family pressure. Amara said nothing. That truth hurt differently. Martin had expanded the system into trafficking and blackmail. But Victor had opened the door. At 5:31 a.m. Jamaica time, police vehicles reached Yvette Street. The medical van was already outside. 2 men were leading Yvette down the front steps. She wore slippers and a nightgown. Where are you taking me? She demanded. One man opened the van. Then police surrounded them. Amara watched through a live video call as her mother was pulled safely away. Amara? Mama. Yvette's face filled the screen. Why are strange men telling me you sent them? Amara finally cried. I didn't. Well, I knew that. Even terrified, Yvette sounded offended. You know I don't travel before breakfast. Amara laughed through tears. Claire smiled beside her. The 2 transport workers were arrested. Their phones exposed 4 similar operations involving families of Langford employees in Jamaica, Trinidad, and the Philippines. By morning, raids began at Langford properties in 5 countries. 32 missing workers were located. 27 were alive. Families who had been told their relatives voluntarily disappeared finally learned the truth. Martin Shaw was charged with trafficking, kidnapping, fraud, extortion, evidence fabrication, and conspiracy. Several Langford executives were arrested with him. Victor survived surgery. 3 days later, Claire visited him. Amara came too. Victor looked at her passport in her hand. I'm glad your mother is safe. Amara remained standing. So am I. I want to fix this. Claire placed the family risk authorization on his hospital table. You signed this. Victor read it. His face changed. I thought it allowed background verification if employees handled confidential property. It authorized surveillance of relatives, Claire said. I didn't read the attachment. Amara looked at him. That isn't a defense. No. He swallowed. I know. Claire removed her engagement ring. Victor stared at it. Claire. I called the police because I watched you take a woman's passport and decide she could not leave your house. She placed the ring beside him. Martin committed crimes behind your back. But he was able to hide them because your company learned from you that control mattered more than consent. Their engagement ended that morning. Victor later resigned as CEO before the board could remove him. Prosecutors did not accuse him of Martin's trafficking operation, but civil investigations found that his policies had enabled unlawful passport retention and employee intimidation. He paid millions into a compensation fund and permanently surrendered control of Langford's international labor programs. Claire represented several of the workers without charging them. Amara never returned to Langford estate. 6 months later, She finally boarded the flight she had been prevented from taking. No employer held her passport. No security guard questioned why she was leaving. When she arrived in Jamaica, Yvette was waiting outside the terminal. Amara ran into her arms. "You took long enough," her mother said. Amara laughed. "I had some trouble getting out of the house." A year later, Amara and Claire opened an independent legal support network helping migrant domestic and hotel workers recover passports, challenge abusive contracts, and report coercion safely. On opening day, Claire handed Amara a framed object. Her old Langford identification badge. Across it, Claire had written, "Employee does not mean property." Amara smiled. Then she placed her passport beside it. Victor had once taken that passport because he believed his power gave him the right to decide whether she could leave. In the end, losing control of Amara exposed the truth he had refused to see. No salary, contract, mansion, or CEO title ever gave one human being ownership over another. And this time, when Amara walked through the door, nobody tried to stop her.